Councillor Burt, seconder. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Schedules of functions attended by Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors. I'll move that from the Chair, and thank you to all those that have attended on my behalf, so I really appreciate that. And seconder for that, Councillor Booth again, thank you. Put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Move now to 8.2, schedule of functions attended by the Chief Executive. I'm happy to move that again. Who's not on the sheet yet? Oh, Councillor Shannon, yeah. And quickly, put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Move now to our first report, which is 9.1, which is a fixing of the common seal. I'll move that. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Burt, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Now move to 9.2, which is on page 52. Catch up the agenda. There we go. Council controlled organisations, and I'll welcome Paul Cooper up as well. Your name's on it. Don't have to. That's right. Bede, did you want to lead us into this?
Through you, Your Worship. I can talk to it. Mr. Cooper can come forward there as well. So look, this is aligning, goes back to that workshop. We've got a piece of work here to align the two constitutions and simplify them, and then put some matters into the policy. And look, broadly, the philosophy that percolates through is where you can put what you can into the policy. Because if you are prescriptive in the constitutions, you run the risk of inadvertently finding the company has a board that is not strictly in alignment with the constitution. At that point, you enter a twilight zone or a grey zone. Are the actions of the company ultra vires because the board is not validly constituted? So that is part of it there. Then there is the issue about whether you have the chairperson is appointed by the board or by the shareholder. The way it is worded currently is that the shareholder does the appointment of the chair and the deputy chair. Whether you have a maximum tenure for directors or not, and where that tenure should be specified, and how, whether you want a little bit of flex. Again, the way it's worded is that it contemplates that the presumption is a 9-year period for a director, or not exceeding 9 years might be a bit way, but on occasion you may wish to give yourself the flex to extend that, and that's what the policy provides. And then do you have a maximum or a minimum number of elected members? So those are really the points, Your Worship, and maybe we could just work through those one by one in terms of the paper. The first one being the minimum and maximum number of directors, the options set out in paragraphs 11 to 13 on page 54 of the agenda. So
brilliant.
Happy to take questions on that. So again, just as I said, you can enshrine it in the Constitution. Officers recommend you do not, for the risk that if you inadvertently fall foul of that provision, you enter a bit of a grey zone. The policy can do that just as well. Policy
can pick that up. Yeah, fantastic. So constitutions, and if you refer table on page 69, has simplified, removed or changed, as you'd know. So we'll work through. So question, Councillor Burt.
Just in terms of any conflicts on TDHL?
Directors of those companies, but they're here really acting in their capacity as councillors, and the issue is, do they feel that they're bringing an open mind, thinking about it in terms of representing the shareholder? The constitutions currently allow them to act in the interests of the shareholder, so that is contemplated, but prudent to just note that there are elected members who are directors on some of these entities, and therefore they may have an interest. But there is no, I don't think, if they're comfortable that they've got an open mind, then that should preclude them from participating in the discussion.
Alrighty, so obviously it's up to you to clear your conflicts, but if you're all comfortable, I'm comfortable with that approach, and we can just work through. Fantastic. So we'll go now to, is there any general questions, or are you happy to work through 1 through 4? So first one deals with minimum mix directors regarding to the two, TDHL and VT. Any thinking around that? So currently we are 3 to 6, and there was 7, it's technically 6 now, isn't it, I think, on VT? Yeah, but anyway, thinking around that, team. And so we'll get some general consensus. If there's consensus, then we'll put these all together. If there's not, and there's differing views, then we'll just work through them and put them one by one. So questions in regard to Max directors? I'm personally happy with the TDHL 3 to 6. Obviously 3 is the minimum. VT currently 7. I think we do need to put some parameters around that, because I actually think 7's relatively high. So I'd like us to put some parameters. So I'd be comfortable with 3 to 6 through both, but pretty keen to hear it. Sorry? And in the policy, yeah. Thinking, team?
I agree with it being in the policy and not in the constitution, so I'm happy with the constitution. As for the numbers, if we've got a range in there, I think we can decide each time, can't we?
Cool, everyone comfortable with that? Policy versus constitution? Yeah, it does make it easier. Councillor Booth?
Oh, it's just, so obviously we can adjust the policy without having to muck around with the constitution. It's quite obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, and there's another advantage of the policy. And certainly I'm not advocating you breach the policy, but if you step outside the policy, it doesn't have any legal consequence the way it might if you breach the constitution. So we certainly are not advocating that, but if you found yourself outside the policy for a period of time because of some circumstance, it doesn't actually present a problem, and it's, I think, a lot easier to monitor and manage a policy rather than the constitution, would be my view for the...
So we get out of jail free card with the policy. Councillor Booth, did you have any further on that?
I guess just on item 4 in the report, which SCE has just mentioned, I would have thought, so it's about having the correct amount of numbers, is that right? And I see that I would have thought that a quorum would have sort of been actually controlled, that you couldn't make a decision unless you had a certain quantum of people are sitting around the table. Just in the last sentence where the validity.
Can you refer to a page?
Yeah, 53, number 4, item 4, down end of that paragraph.
Yeah.
And it was just where the TDHL's current constitution includes prescriptive provisions that potentially place the directors in a predicament where their decisions may inadvertently mean that TDHL is acting ultra vires, but then it goes on to say that if there is any reason this is breached and places TDHL's invidious position, that actions may be challenged around the board table. So, but I would have thought that the quantum or the quorum would sort of cover that you couldn't make a decision unless you had this X amount of people around the table.
You'd still need a quorum as it's set out. What does the Constitution say in regard to quorum?
If I may jump in.
Yeah, sorry, but I will introduce you. Apologies, we've got Sarah Simmons from Anderson Lloyd who can jump in and answer any questions in regard to legal. Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so the quorum is a majority of the directors at that time.
Yeah, so if that got down as low as, so it means you could have as low as 2, technically. Yeah, cool.
Just to clarify, what we're trying to avoid there, Councillor Booth, is that you might say have 5 or 6 directors, but then for a variety of reasons, if it specifies 3, you might already drop down to 2. And I think, Sarah, you were saying there was a case of a company that for some years they didn't realise what the minimum or maximum number was, and they were in breach of that. And so that's the challenge you have, is suddenly if you haven't got you're not sitting within the band specified in the Constitution, you might constitute a quorum because your majority of the directors who are showing up are there, but the board is not constituted in accordance with the constitution, and that's where you get into a grey zone. Do you want to elaborate a bit on that, Sarah?
Yeah, in that situation, there was a minimum number of directors that wasn't met. And so once they discovered this, they didn't realise for a number of months, they sort of had to quickly scramble and appoint an extra director and then pass a resolution ratifying everything that had been done beforehand. It wasn't ideal.
A little bit messy. Anyway, so you're comfortable with that, Councillor Booth? Okay, brilliant. So I think we're all in agreement on point 1. We'll move to point 2. TDHL and VT's constitution should a maximum number of elected member directors, taking into account the report that we've previously seen and the direction that we're heading, but happy to get comments, questions from the floor in regard to what people's thinking is. Councillor Booth?
Look, probably just going back to the VT board, going from 7 back to 6. The price, I mean, the cost of a VT board member is relatively bugger all compared to a TDHL, and it's probably you're looking at economic development plus you're looking at tourism, and I just wonder whether that's we're up at 7 at the moment, and I know. But it could be, you get a little bit more variety around the table.
Yeah, so that's, so we're making decisions on the constitution, so that can still sit within the policy. Yeah, yeah, so that's a good point, and that can still be covered. And so, yeah, elected member directors, we're currently 1 and 1 effectively, 2 by default on VT, but it's sort of been 1. I think you know my view in regard to TDHL. I'd like to see it all independent, but I'm comfortable with where the consensus is. Do we want to set anything out in the constitution for that, in that regard? Councillor Piddington.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that, Nigel. I think TDHL does need 1 councillor on board to help the process, to keep us in the loop, but I mean, we don't have to decide that today, do we?
Yeah, so it's just where the constitution sets that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, sorry, no.
I was just going to, I agree, take it out of the constitution, have it in the policy, but in the constitution at 7.2 on both of them, it says elected members of council may be appointed as directors, and I think we should take out the words be appointed, because as we know in Councillor Scott's case, she wasn't appointed, but she was a director, and I think it just clarifies that. So we're saying that elected members can be a director whether they're appointed or whether they were on there prior to being an elected member. I just think there's a slight distinction there.
Yeah, so just can be a director as opposed to appointed. Yeah. Just, yeah. Sorry, Bede, you had a comment?
Oh, no, that's a very good point, Councillor Pye, that elected members may be directors, and then again, it's a bit of a risk management about putting it in the policy rather than the constitution, because exactly to your point, elected members may or may not be directors pre or post an election. And so I think, again, you don't want to be in that invidious position where you fall, the constitution isn't quite being fitted. And so therefore you come to the policy, and it is what's the preference of council in terms of having a number, one way or the other, minimum or maximum.
Did you? No. All good. Okay, so comfortable with moving to policy in that regard as well then. So move to 3, whether to set maximum tenure for TDHL and VT directors. That can be gobbled up by policy again. Is everyone comfortable with that? No one wants to? Yeah, okay, cool. And so we move to 4, TDHL and VT's chairperson and deputy chairperson be appointed. And do you want that to sit in policy again? Seems to be the theme. Any questions, comments? Councillor Booth?
So is the main change that the council will appoint the chair of VT, rather than the board. That's the main change in that, correct?
Yeah, no, effectively, but it will sit in the policy rather than the constitution. Yeah. Okay, so if we go through those four, I think everyone's comfortable. Number 2 is adopt the attached constitutions, or just with that change to 7.2, which will reflect can be appointed. Delegates power to 3 is delegates power to Mayor and Chief Executive to confirm the finalised constitutions, and external government's appointments policy to reflect the decision of council, and for authorise the Mayor and Chief Executive to sign on behalf of the shareholders. So, yeah.
Just wonder, Your Worship, we add number 5, and for those documents to be brought back to council, just so that they've got comfort the changes
Yep.
were made in accordance
with.
with them, and just so that they're brought back to council. That's the 2 constitutions and the policy once they're finalised.
Yeah.
That way council knows that there've been changes made as intended by.
Cool. So everyone's pretty good?
Sorry, Mayor Nigel, just
Yeah.
to clarify, are we saying the appointment of the deputy chair and the chair is in the constitution or the policy? Because I thought we were recommending it's in the constitution. I was comfortable with that.
Oh,
It's in,
Sorry.
it's in the constitution.
yeah, no, that is in the constitution, you're correct. Sorry, I'll just pull that up. Yeah, it was in the constitution versus the policy. Yeah, which is,
And the constitutions are going to be the same for TDHL and BT?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first, actually, that's a good point. So the first 3 are really we're pushing to policy, whereas the 4th is constitution, so it's so not as easy to change. So we're making the appointment for the chair, which, yep, okay.
That aligns BT with TDHL.
Yeah, and they're both aligned, which they're not at the moment, because one's appointed and one's not. Councillor Shannon.
Just with regards to the external appointments policy, do you just want some feedback on that before you bring it back? Because there are a few grammatical things and a couple of statements here which are quite odd and difficult to follow and understand.
It's up now if you want to direct them to us, for sure. Yep.
Okay, well, going straight to the introduction and purpose and the objectives, 1.1, 111. I think I understand what you're trying to say there, but I'm not quite sure. Page 73. It doesn't actually make a great deal of sense to me when read as a sentence or a statement.
Which one, sorry, Scotty? The first one.
The first one, the purpose of this policy is to enhance Timaru District Council's connected citizens' community wellbeing outcome that seeks to provide advocacy and leadership through advocating and encouraging citizens to contribute ideas and its perspectives in an easily accessible way. I'm sure that could be more succinct.
We can look at trying to shorten it and bring it back if you like, but keep the essence of it, that it's about ensuring that there's the community has an opportunity to see just how we are appointing external, how we're making governance appointments. And we think that's quite important in terms of a philosophical statement, but we can see if we can shorten that up and bring it back.
So that's the wording that appears in the policy at the moment, but happy to revisit it and simplify it.
There's a lot of fluff in there, Scotty, isn't there? Councillor Shannon, sorry. That's right. Perhaps, have you? Yeah, perhaps we do that. Yeah, okay. So we'll go back to the resolution, and we just, perhaps we bring the policy then back once we've fed those through for sign-off, just so everyone's comfortable. We've got a meeting on the 12th, so that'll be fine. I think that's fine. So we'll bring the policy back on the 12th, and if you feed any of those changes in, yeah. Okay, so back to the resolution. So we've got 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 reflects the policy, 4 reflects constitution, then 2, 3, 4, and then with that one change that Councillor Pye pointed out, can be appointed. And what was the 5th one, Bede, that you mentioned?
To bring the constitutions back for council to be satisfied that change is made, and then bring the policy back for final adoption.
Yeah, perfect. So everyone comfortable with that? Got it picked up, team. Thank you. I'm happy to move that. Councillor Booth, second it. Perfect. Any further discussion? No. I'll put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you for your time, Sarah.
Thank you. I'll sign off now.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you.